Today on Japan Tuning, I'm going to be replacing my clutch and flywheel on my 2007 Mazda RX8. The new clutch I'm going to install is the RX8 Stage 1 Organic Clutch Kit, recommended for street or autocross use. The kit includes an organic clutch disc, upgraded pressure plate rated for up to 274 foot-pounds of torque to the wheels, or 360 foot-pounds of torque to the flywheel, throwout bearing, pilot bearing, and clutch alignment tool. I'll also be installing a Racing Beat aluminum lightweight flywheel with the counterweight. This flywheel weighs in at only 8 pounds compared to the stock flywheel at 16.8 pounds. These lightweight flywheels are known to improve throttle response, quicker engine revving, and improve shifting efficiency. I will make a follow-up video dedicated to my thoughts on the flywheel in a separate video. Some tools I'm going to be using for this project is a transmission jack, impact wrench, impact extenders, swivels, and sockets, including a 54mm for the flywheel nut and appropriate adapter for the impact wrench. And the last thing is miscellaneous sockets and wrenches. Additional parts I'll be replacing is the clutch slave cylinder, and I'll be replacing the rubber hose with a stainless steel clutch line. Start off inside the car by removing the shift knob and center panel and disconnect the wires. Remove the bolts holding the shifter in and pull it out and keep it in a safe place. Now get under the car and remove the exhaust and mid-pipe, being sure to unplug the O2 sensors. Remove the front and rear tunnel members, power plant frame, and exhaust manifold support.
All beneath the water, never felt quite this bright. Ecstasy, nirvana, is this the no sounds surround us. No sounds divide us. No sounds.
Next step is removing the starter motor. Disconnect the wires going to the motor, then remove the 2 bolts and the starter comes right out. At this point, it is time to drain the transmission and dispose of the fluid properly.
Don't let our secrets out. If the tide get lower, I will dive deeper.
Now the drive shaft can be removed. Remove the 4 bolts from the differential and pull the other end from the transmission. Be careful with these drive shafts, as they are carbon fiber. Wrap them with a towel and put it somewhere that it won't get damaged. Now is the removal of the clutch slave cylinder from the top of the transmission, just 2 bolts and the clutch line. I'm replacing the slave cylinder with the centric one. Remove the old rubber clutch line that will also be replaced with the Technofit stainless steel braided line. Also disconnect the wires on top of the transmission. The last thing to do before dropping the transmission is to check to make sure that there is nothing still attached to it that will break off. When certain there is nothing else attached to the transmission, put the transmission on a cheap Harbor Freight transmission jack and strap it into place. Remove the 5 bolts holding the transmission up and gently wiggle it from the input shaft.
No sounds screams have faded now. No sounds divided. Come late, come stay a while.
Next is removing the pressure plate by removing the 6 bolts. After the pressure plate comes a clutch disc. Behind the clutch disc is the stock flywheel. If I was not replacing the flywheel, I would need to send it and get it machined and resurfaced before reinstalling it. Remove the flywheel by removing the 54mm nut. I'm using a 54mm impact socket on a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch drive adapter to fit my impact wrench. I threaded the nut on a little to keep the flywheel from falling off, then hit the flywheel with a brass hammer on the outside until it loosens. Then remove it with the nut. Next is removing the old pilot bearing. I have a cheap inner bearing puller from Amazon that I tried on this. It didn't really work very well. I grounded down the second to smallest size to get it to fit, and I was able to pull out the seal but not the bearing. When I tried to pull out the pilot bearing, the tool broke, so I resorted to shoving wet paper towel in there and hammering in a wrench, and it worked like a charm. Bearing came right out, and I didn't have to spend $160 on a special RX8 bearing puller. At this point, I've removed everything, so now it's time to put the clutch and flywheel back in, and then put everything back together. Apply grease to the bearing and gently bang in the new pilot bearing with a socket the same OD as the bearing. Ensure that the bearing is going in straight. Stop banging when the bearing is flush. Now install the new flywheel, clutch, pressure plate, and throwout bearing. Be sure to grease the throwout bearing. Now it is just installing everything in reverse order. Make sure to use a torque wrench and torque the bolts down properly. I will include a diagram in the description with all the torque numbers for each bolt.
On me, fall in love with a sucker man, but sucker somebody burns. That you could be the one for me, but like a drug, I need to detox my body. Ooh, never gonna find a city like
now that everything's back together, fill up the transmission with the transmission oil. I'm using Redline Synthetic 75W90. There you have it, a full clutch and flywheel replacement on an RX8 done in my garage by a bunch of 17 and 18 year olds. Stay tuned for more videos this summer on Japan to Tuning.
It's trouble there.